Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, August 9th, so last stream, we can catch up with that. Apparently YouTube decided to change the stream key that I was supposed to use, the password. Because of that, the stream went out to YouTube's ingest server and then went nowhere from that. Or it streamed to another random person's channel if they cycle the codes that quickly and that easily, which I doubt they would. That would be really stupid. In fact, frankly, you would have to ensure that these keys are never reused and they're not long enough really for that, or block specific people after a few different attempts on different keys, and probably do both. Otherwise you could probably just stream on random people's channel by putting gibberish keys or brute forcing keys. That being said, I did figure that out and put out the video in a recorded form later on in case you missed that. Let's re-roll that. Alright, so we're gonna have to do Delarian heist bosses and Murlocs for the Americans account. We don't have a ton of news today. We need to do the, I believe, European accounts, Tavern Brawl, because this is Friday. I am frankly just out of the business right now, as far as actually making recordings and playing video games. But I am kind of happy to say that I made a major amount of progress last evening. Gains a random effect for this run. What is this? Well, whatever it is, it's probably better than what I've got as options anyways. And we need to play Murlocs, so that means we have to play Shaman, Rogue. Shaman, here we are. Pretty much. Draw a card, transform a friendly minion into one that costs one more. Draw a card and overload. I think we'll go with this. And let's see, what do we start with here? Both players start the game with a Violet Prison. After a minion summons a Taunt, Divine Shield Rush, or Wind Fury at random. Let's see, we got some Murlocs in this deck. I think that's probably better than this deck. Yeah, this deck doesn't have any Murlocs. And I bet this deck doesn't have many Murlocs either. Alright, so that's the one we want to play. Of course, I guess I'm telling the story backwards. Yesterday, for what it was the third attempt at finishing the project, if you include the estimate, the free estimate, my contracted plumber came. And he promptly, immediately showed up, having forgotten 2 of 4 things he needed to do. This plumber claims that he's being just dragged around to way too many job sites. He says that their plumbing company needs to hire like 5 new plumbers, and I'm like, yeah, you do. And you need to quick calling jumps. I'm even forgetting the part that he showed up late again. This is now the second time they've showed up outside of their window with no courtesy call, with the dispatcher / secretary not knowing where clue. So this is just procedure at this point. Like, I know it is straight up. They have no rules. They have no procedures. They don't know what they're doing on the management side. On the plumbing side, I don't know. I'm not a plumber. On the electrical side, well, they were jumping around on the wire, and halfway through with it, I had to say, well, actually, I think you need to do it on the outer edges of the pipes, because you've connected part of this with vinyl thread tape, and I'm not sure vinyl thread tape is conductive. It might act as like a semiconductor and be slightly conductive, or there might be tiny holes that would then allow a bit of conduction, but when you're talking the safety ground that needs to be on all the water pipes, you don't want something with a high resistance in that setup. You want something that will be a very low resistance to take all the current, or most of the current, to ground. That's the point of a safety ground, is it's supposed to be the path of least resistance. And frankly, he was connecting it to what looked like an anodized steel silver pipe, which very possibly may have been coated with something also. So yeah, I told him, yeah, actually connect it to the copper part, just for safety's sake.
Perhaps I can end this.
Now, arguably, I could be wrong about that. I could see arguments made that actually it would have been fine because there was water in all of it, and the water being not pure water, having some salt in it would probably take the current, but that's kind of not what you want. So yeah, this guy's been a nightmare. This plumber has been their entire company. It's not just the plumber. It's their entire company. It's the way they do things. That's the problem. They're taking emergency jobs when they have scheduled jobs anyways. If you're showing up late because you took an emergency job you really had to take, then you could have called and said you were going to be late way earlier. They never did that. So yeah, at this point, I'm not one of these guys that likes to complain, but I am complaining publicly here, while not naming the plumber or the company. But at this point, there's really no way that this isn't going to be like a bad Yelp review, a bad Google review. People need to be aware that this company is not a company that you would want to do business with. I would not recommend this company to anybody. They have major issues that they need to fix, and it's going to take a while, I think, before they would even consider to make those changes. Part of the problem is one of the things they need to replace is they need to put in a bigger drain pan, which in theory means that they would take the smaller drain pan, and drain pans, he said, were only about $30. In all honesty, if you're getting them in bulk, you're probably only paying $5 for them, and they come in different sizes. They are big and round, a bit like pizza pans, certainly, but you can, like pizza pans, put them all on top of each other and have them in a truck very easily to have backups. They apparently never jump or have any concern for grounding, because they spent 75 cents to get grounding wire, and that's ridiculous. Like, it would have been easy to buy $10 worth of grounding wire, cut it into like pieces, hand it to every single employee and say, hey, we've got now a month's supply, a lifetime supply of grounding wire as plumbers. There's really no reason not to stock up on things. It doesn't seem like they stock up on anything. It doesn't seem like they have any pipes or plumbing connections, because the other thing that he said he couldn't do was connect the plumbing part, which makes no sense. The thing that the only thing I got was the Wi-Fi module for the water heater, and the Wi-Fi module, and this is not the plumber's fault, is frankly with my network setup a total piece of garbage. It just loses connection like ever. So it's like a $50 module that you can put on newer reams that are compatible, or you can buy a newer ream water heater. I can't really attest to whether a ream water heater is any better than, say, the Lowe's brand A.O. Smith water heaters. But yeah, you put this thing on there. It has a leak detection wire, which is nice, but because it loses connection all the time, that's probably never gonna be trustworthy or worth using. And there's another system you can install that would check for leaks throughout your entire house, instead of just checking for leaks in the water heater specifically, which arguably there are going to be leaks in the entire house, a lot more. So that's probably useless. The only thing it does is it gives you exact numbers on the water heater that you can adjust your water heater to, and it gives you a schedule that, fingers crossed, I'm not certain about this, is actually saved in the Wi-Fi module once those settings are saved. So once it loses connection, it will follow that schedule. So I've set it up now where when people are bathing in the morning, it does about 110 degree temperature hot water, and then after people stop bathing around noon or so, it goes down to 93 degrees, which is a perfectly fine temperature for just washing your hands, and that's pretty much all that's built around is that time frame, is that you would wash your hands and you'd want it to be slightly warm but not scalding warm, and you want to save as much money as possible during that. And then in the evening, when the dishwasher, which my dishwasher is electric, comes on, so every 1 degree of temperature that the dishwasher has to use electricity to raise it up to get to like an internal 120 or something, cost a lot more than what the gas water heater would cost. So I have it set to like 115 degrees for the dishwasher, and frankly that should probably be a pretty small window in which the temperature is there, because one assumes that the water heater is not bringing just cold water up to that temperature. It is maintaining probably the temperature up to that hot amount. So for every day you're not doing dishes, it is spending extra propane, extra natural gas to get up to that temperature. And then after the dishwashing timer schedule, I have it set to go back to 93 degrees, which yeah, in the middle of the night when everybody's asleep, you don't need the water to be hot. But also you wouldn't want it just at probably the lowest of temperatures, because in case you want to wash your hands in the middle of the night, you don't want it to be freezing cold. It seems like you can have more than 4 time slots and different days on the schedule, very much like the Nest. You could connect it to the Nest and the Alexa, but again, because it's such a piece of garbage and loses connection, the truth of the matter is that nothing you try will stay connected. At first I thought it was the app itself, the Ream app, that's having problems connecting, but I'm not 100% sure that's actually the case now. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is the module itself. It would be better if it's the app that's the problem, because the app can be updated. If there needs to be a way to firmware flash or update the Wi-Fi module, that's going to be a nightmare. It doesn't seem to have any real system in case the power goes out. It's just going to try and reconnect. That's just all it's gonna do. So because you are in that position where it will just constantly try and reconnect and either fail or succeed, one again would hope it would continue and follow the schedule that was programmed into it previously, but maybe it wouldn't. It definitely isn't going to cause anything to turn off or set to a different temperature because the power is out or went out on it. The works with Google Nest, by the way, is really more for the Nest's like smoke detectors than it is for the Nest thermostat. Yeah, I should be more accurate about that. It seems like it's a concept of if your Google Nest thermostat, if your Google Nest smoke detector detects that there's CO2 leaking, it will turn off the water heater. One assumes that means it would turn off the pilot light, which I know they're all electric starters now, and they don't have pilot lights. Or I'm fairly certain that's the case.
The red one tastes like cherries.
On a bigger scale, it seems like the water heater works fine, though, so the fact that the $50 Wi-Fi module, which adds more functionality, doesn't work is not the worst case scenario. Alright, so what do we want to do? We can hit this for sure. And we could hit that, we could hit that, we could hit that, but it wouldn't help me. So yeah, the water heater was the first half of most of yesterday. Waking up early for that for no reason, and then them not showing up on time, and then just frustration of dealing with that. And it certainly is hot enough that just walking in the garage where my water heater is a almost immediate death sentence of you're going to be immediately covered with sweat and want to shower, even if you only spend like 5 minutes in there. So yeah, that sucks. And then I eventually started working on my server. Finally got it to work so that no longer do I have to type in a password to run it as root using the sudo command superuser do in the terminal, or to execute root like elements via GNOME. Apparently there's a policy kit, a program literally called Policy Kit that is specifically configured for many apps that run in GNOME that are asking to do dangerous things. It was a more difficult than it should be example of me having to go into the configuration and change things, which was not fun. This is an example, I think, of mostly that Linux Mint Debian Edition 3 uses such a different version than Debian Edition 2 did, that they've changed systems and changed their minds and changed configurations.
Fix yourself up next time.
Frankly, it has been a case of, well, that was terrible. That was a terrible run. Try that again. Did that play any Murlocs, by the way? Because if that didn't play any Murlocs, I'm not gonna bother to try and do that. Yeah. Play 50 Murlocs did not count in solo play. That makes no sense at all. We definitely played a ton of Murlocs. So, just getting removing the necessity to type in a long, complicated password on the server, which, let's face it, I know I'm running terrible security here, but if somebody gets physically close to it, if they get physical access to it, they're going to be able. I don't even know what I picked there, but whatever. We'll just go with that and hope we can win 2 games. And that's pretty much all I'm going to try and do.
Heroes are trying to stop us. Send them to the Spirit Healer.
Yeah, just saving myself an incredible amount of time typing in passwords. I am, I think, 95% of the way done, because the backup server is mostly consisted of what it turned out to be a 76-way RAID Z3 on ZFS file system. I accomplished that by dropping up the hard drives into half terabyte sizes. That way, that was the least common denominator for a variety of differently sized hard drives, and making a RAID around that. Unfortunately, I missed one drive, and you can't really add drives, so all I can do is chop up a 4 terabyte drive into 8 I think it was actually maybe even 10 half terabyte
Got a lot of appointments. Let's get this going.
drives, partitions on the drive. So I chopped them up and then added them as spare drives. So in theory, assuming the spare drive doesn't crash, several other partitions of other spare drives crash. Now, what this really boils down to is I didn't get any more space, but I also didn't ruin things, and just like ruining the setup is pretty easy to do. The only way to really fix this would have been to delete everything, and now I'm just too far in the process that I really don't want to go through that hassle. But I do have another like 4 terabyte hard drive, so 2 like 8 terabytes of space are mostly just going to be used for spares until some point happens where ZFS upgrades itself considerably in a way that yeah, and until it updates itself where you can add drives to a Z-RAID, which it should be able to do. There really is no reason that you shouldn't be able to, as the drive is running, just say add some more hard drives to it. Removing hard drives makes sense. Like, I get the idea that it's more math and more complicated to remove a drive from a RAID. It's not hard to add a drive to a RAID system. There's frankly not enough ports or slots for hard drives in my server case to go any further with it. What I think I would need would be like a 100 drive case that I could put 4 hard drives in and plug them into the back of the server as a like 4 disk RAID type system to try and compete even with that. So yeah, 2 of the biggest hard drives I have potentially not getting their space used. That's not a huge deal right now because I do have 35 terabytes in that initial build. I suppose I could try to do something else, but whatever I tried I think would be very dangerous and a lot of effort and a lot of frustration for not the best success. And it isn't a terrible idea to have 2 actual physical drives act as spares for when other drives fail. The problem is, since there are so many partitions split up between the way a drive works, if the physical drive fails, which is how it's going to happen, you're not going to just lose one of those 76 drives or disks or partitions in the RAID. You're going to lose maybe 1 if it's one of my oldest hard drives, or maybe 3 if it's my second oldest hard drive, or maybe 6 if it's the 3rd oldest hard drives, or potentially 8 or 10 if it's one of the newest hard drives. And so if you're losing that many partitions, I don't 100% know what the yeah, I don't know exactly what that does or how that works. Like, I don't know how many or what hard drives could fail before the RAID is completely a mess. And so yeah, ideally, since there are 16 slots to have 16 physical disks in there, one of my slots on my server, by the way, doesn't work, but I can just move the cord around. Since there's basically enough room for 16 hard drives, I would have wanted 12 of those to be in a RAID array, and 4 of those to be a hot spare. But that may not even be the best way to do it, but that ideally would be your safest way. The hard drives that have failed, a lot of them have been bad, very old or Seagate drives. I would not recommend Seagate drives ever.
It's time for it.
So did I do anything else with the server? I'm just slowly trying to set up file sharing, trying to make a system service using the init systemd Linux command. I've got to get certain folders to remount with different permissions. Basically, there's a location of there's an issue of there being folders that can only be accessed and can only be labeled to be accessed by a specific user, but other users I actually do want to be able to access it, so I have to trick the folder into sharing its information as a different user. And I can do that easily once I figure out which of the 4 or 5 specialty styles of mount commands and I need to install and use. I believe bind fs was the one that I needed and found.
Can I light your fire?
I should have played this, actually.
Yeti.
There's one that's taunting me.
So I can do that. It's just a matter now that I have to have the commands run in the right time and procedure on boot up, so it works nice and well. And until I can get that working perfectly, moving forward with the software, the many different servers and softwares and applications that are going to be using that information, can't as easily happen. I'm going to take this. I don't have enough to talk about, clearly, because I'm talking about Linux stuff, which I'm sure very few people care about. So let's leave that Delarian heist, and let's start playing Murlocs. I'm not doing a great job of documenting anything I'm doing, and that does mean that 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when I last worked on the server, I don't remember exactly what I did or didn't do. It's a waste of effort to go through it and do it again. I'm always in this weird position because, like, I'm an IT guy, sure, but I'm never really doing the same IT thing over and over again, and I really wouldn't want to, but I would probably benefit from doing it and having procedures and following instructions, or having written down instructions a few times more than I do. So yeah, 2 years from now, what needs to be done to accomplish the same thing could be different because Debian changes, or what needs to be done could be exactly the same, but I just don't remember what it was because it's been so long. I guess I should ideally hope to be done with the server completely and have it set up and good to go by the end of next week. That would be ideal. It really is just a matter of how many instances of things happen that I have to bang my head against. I know how I did the folder mounting. I know that specifically was something that I did completely different before, and I don't think was the safest, smartest way to do it. So trying to use the systemd init script and creating something like that, which is just a short script that has to be exactly phrased perfectly, is the better way to do it. Safer, more industry standard way of doing things. Speaking of typing things exactly, as I was working on the water heater Wi-Fi module, I worked on my router a little bit, and I mistyped two things into it. I put a semicolon instead of a comma in the DNS secured, the DNS encrypt options, commands, because the router, all the commands have to be like typed. I'm doing a thing that is not simplified and easy yet. Arguably I should spend some extra time and update my Wi-Fi router. It's been long enough to go through that frustration, but that'll be another extra couple of days. So I had like 2 typos, and the typos were causing the entire thing just to not work and to crash, and I'm like, oh, so this is not good. It has no command line parsing. Most my Wi-Fi router and most Wi-Fi routers are running on a Linux version too, a much more stripped down version with less features and a lot less complexity. By a little bit, I guess. Some less complexity, I guess you would say. So with that, you would, let's see, I don't know how you kill this with and then play this. I guess you don't. So yeah, most versions of Linux though will parse the config files and say, oh, we don't understand what you're saying in this line, we'll just ignore what you're saying. This one just hard crashed. That's bad. That's really, really bad. Because it led to this confusion and this uncertainty of why is this all of a sudden not working. Of course, that's another example of myself probably becoming a little bit run ragged, and thus I am causing a level of how else would I say it? Of mistakes to happen that shouldn't happen. Another thing I discovered is the water from my refrigerator all of a sudden tastes really, really bad. I'm not sure if it's because we need to change the water filter or if something else is going wrong with it. But I pulled out the ice tray, and particularly it seems like the ice tray, and I tried to clean around that area. Perhaps I need to do a better job of that, because my fear, worst case scenario, would be that there's actually mold in there, and that's what we're tasting. But that might just be 100% the fact that I'm watching way too much Bar Rescue. Yeah, speaking of Bar Rescue, I was motivated to look at businesses that are on sale. You can actually look this up, oddly enough, in your area. And in my area is a, let's be honest, a computer shop where the owner is retiring. Doesn't seem like it makes a lot of money. Has 2 employees. Some of the purchasing the businesses, it seems like it doesn't have anything to do with the lease, so you're kind of just purchasing the name of the business and maybe the inventory. In this case, the computer shop had an extra $10,000 worth of inventory that would probably be not something you would want. So there's definitely a level of cheap businesses out there that you can buy. They're probably useless though, on the other hand. But it was an interesting fantasy thought. This would be a thought of, at least in part, I would stop doing YouTube or slow down on doing YouTube to run my own computer shop, to then be my own boss, to then have to deal with all the frustration of running a business and running a computer shop, which computer shops are not good businesses by any means. Nobody really wants to buy a computer from a local store or get it fixed from a local store. They would rather order it from Amazon.com. Really? Only 3 Murlocs? Do we have another Murloc deck? Not as far as I know. Let's see what this custom shaman is. Of course, also, if the business wanted like $90,000 to buy the business out, and I don't know what the $90,000, where you can break down the valuation on that. But also, I wouldn't imagine that it's unbelievable that if you were to try and go get a bank loan and start a new business and find your own location, find a lease, find all the advertising and all the marketing. I wouldn't be surprised if you'd spend more than $90,000 to do that. But it's both an incredibly expensive amount of money and also kind of not an incredibly expensive amount of money, because that's you would think to buy a business you would be up in the $500,000 range, and I think you probably will quickly get into that range, whether you realize it or not, or intend to or not. But yeah,
That's incredible.
compared to Bar Rescue, it seems like most of the bars run for 3 or 4 years, and right about that point they need to be remodeled, and they've already spent $250,000 to $500,000 in making and just maintaining the sorry, in maintaining the business as it is. Let's see. This one can't attack even if I was to give it rush, so that wouldn't make a lot of sense, now would it? But yeah, that's not something I'd really look into. If anything, it would be smarter if I had the money, which I don't, to buy the business and put somebody else in charge of it and do very little work and just be an owner. And that's something I think I could probably succeed at, since I actually do know about computers enough to step in big cases while leaving all the virus scanning BS to other people. Of course, then you have to pay those employees. I guess that's enough rambling. I wonder, like, particularly in an instance like this, I wonder to myself, is this interesting to anyone, or am I just really just rambling? So let's go ahead and start covering the video game news and try and get as much of this as finished as possible, because we've got, let's see, how many of these cards, by the way, are Murlocs. I may win here in a ranked play and then find out no Murlocs were actually played, which is gonna suck. We've got mostly garbage on Steam, and I've got a lot of work, clearly, to continue to work on. On the YouTube being a career front, they dangled in an announcement, they dangled some bait, which you would be a sucker to believe anything really that YouTube says, but someone asked and they actually answered, so the fact that they bothered to answer says that they are working towards this idea, that they are going to try and lower the number of subscriptions. Now, since the number of subscriptions required to be in the YouTube Partner Program right now is 1,000, my guess is that you would probably go down to 500. If that's the case, that's still 200 short, about 200. That's still about 200 short of what I would want. that's something to consider, but it's a lot more of a reasonable number than getting up to 1,000 subscribers. You've heard me beg, certainly, to have people subscribe me to as many channels as possible. Have as many of your friends subscribe to my channel as possible, is what I meant to say there. Then, like, I don't even really care if people watch at this point. I have plenty of watch hours, particularly if I just had more subscribers, because then I'd get promoted slightly more, one would hope. That being said, they might lower or remove the number of subscribers and increase the amount of watch time. And if they increase the amount of watch time, then that too might still cause me trouble to get into the YouTube partner program. And let's be honest, there's a chance that I apply to get back into YouTube partner program and they just say we don't want gaming channels, or we don't like something specifically about your channel. There was a story, an allegation that some woman that lives out of her van is getting promoted like crazy, and there's question, is this because it's a Philip DeFranco promotion agency that is promoting it, or is this just that YouTube has decided to make a chosen winner, or is this a case of perhaps the YouTube algorithm going crazy? I don't think so. Or something else happening in the background that nobody recognizes. This really is the first time I've ever heard of a channel just coming out of nowhere and having like 3 videos and getting tons of subscribers, apparently getting auto-subscribed to a bunch of people, getting promoted, getting pushed. That seems really weird and really crazy. The scariest scenario to me is that this is an experiment by YouTube to see how much influence they can maximally inflict on the YouTube community, to just force people into watching what they want them to watch. That being said, I haven't been on YouTube a lot lately, so I haven't seen this person. So different people's experience might vary there. Right. Well, we've got it then. We got a victory, but that's not really what I was trying to do. Getting back into the YouTube partner program for me would be very nice. It would be a pat on the back. It would be back on track to feeling like I might as well just play ranked regardless. Like, it's not like I'm getting anywhere in ranked anyways. No, I should play casual. It would be the beginnings of something that says maybe then this YouTube channel could, now being close to 8,000 videos, back when it just had 5,000 videos, was getting 7 cents. So maybe now it's gonna get 10 cents or a quarter a week, or maybe there's a snowball effect there. It'd be nice if I could get it up to even $100 a week. Like, $400 a month is certainly not enough to live off of, but it's the beginning of something. Again, snowball effect. If you tripled it to $1,200 a month instead of $400 a month, that would be sort of reasonable. It would sort of pay off enough for a mortgage or a rent and food for one person and most, if not all, bills. If you're making $1,200 a month, you're making about $14,000 a year. So you're not making any real money. So it would be ideally that with some passive income, because I have so many videos on my YouTube channel, it'd be ideal that you'd want to get up to $40,000 a year. And that's certainly a big ask. That it requires snowball effect after snowball effect after snowball effect. But also, one would hope you're getting better ad click-through rates. And this is based on the old information. For all I know, the new information is completely different. Now, maybe because they kicked all the small-time YouTubers out of the YouTube Partner Program, maybe now if I got back in, instead of seeing 7 cents a week, I would just be getting 100 times that. $7 a week. That would be some way better. It still would require several snowballing effects. The truth is, you need $300-400 every week of income to live off of, and that's not like even really close to what you'd be paid if your take home is that much. Because even if I was making $300 or $400 a week, and this is just general understanding what things cost these days, I'm not getting any extra life insurance or retirement from that. So if you have a take-home pay that's taking out taxes and withholding taxes, which arguably it shouldn't, particularly if you're very, very poor and getting paid very little, but if your take-home is $400 a week, you're still getting shortchanged probably by a couple $100 worth of health insurance and retirement and dental and things like that businesses have no business to actually be the people in charge of those things, yet they have allowed, the government has allowed them to be in charge of that. This is in part, and I guess I still am rambling instead of talking about video games, but this is in part the problem that is trying to be solved with Medicare for all or a single payer system, is the idea to remove corporations being in charge of people's retirement and health insurance. There's no reason why a corporation should be in charge of those things. They should be paying you out more money, and the equivalent of that money, and frankly corporations should be paying everybody more money, and then people should be, if the government wants to require that you have life insurance and health insurance, that was in part what the Obamacare issue was, is that they couldn't even require it, according to the way the laws were argued in the Supreme Court. They could just tax people who didn't have it, which is funny because you can be required to have car insurance for some reason, and you don't get taxed when you don't have car insurance, but you can't be required to have health insurance. So that's weird. I guess you're not required to have car insurance if you never drive anywhere, and you don't have a car, but if you are driving a car, you're required to have car insurance. Insurance itself is a scam, and I think nobody should be required to have any of it. It would be much better to have Medicare for all and have the government take tax money and take care of its citizens, because that's the point of a government, is to take care of and protect its citizens. And I think a lot of governments forget that real quickly.
Job's done.
But yeah. Really, it has just been a rambling conversation here. One of the benefits of the fantasy of owning my own job, or owning my own computer shop in particular, which would be about the one thing I'm qualified to do, is the small amount of job security that gives you, and small is should be definitely highlighted there, because like it does increase your risk of losing money, but there's nobody, if you're the boss, if you're the owner, that can say you're out of here, you're fired, I don't want to work with you. You could have employees quit on you, but until you've gotten to the point where you've given your company such a bad name that nobody will work for you, which frankly takes a lot of effort, you have some job security. You can set your own hours, you can set your own expectations, a lot of things that you don't get when you're just working for some other company. I'm sure anybody who has worked a decent amount of jobs has worked a job that like is either terrible about setting hours, either random hours or extremely strict, counting the exact second that you clock in and clock out. 2 minutes is usually about the appropriate time there. If you're 2 minutes early or 2 minutes late, they really shouldn't bring it up until you're showing a pattern of being 2 minutes late, and they really shouldn't ever complain about you being 2 minutes early. Unless you're just like an hour early. Sometimes if somebody's hanging out in a place with their friends or with their coworkers and distracting the coworkers who are on the clock because they've been there an hour early, that's sometimes a problem.
Hello.
Most people have worked jobs where if you've worked enough jobs, you've run into things where the workload is ridiculous. That you're doing 3, 4, 5 times as many people, as much work as is realistic to ask a person to do. Things like that certainly do happen. So having control and thinking yourself to be a nice guy and being and owning a company probably is an appealing idea. You can't be too nice of a guy. You still have to be a boss, but you don't have to be as big of a jerk as the jerks that you've seen run businesses. If you've seen any jerks run businesses. It's probably pretty obvious that there isn't a ton of video game news today. Alright, let's start covering the news, because what I think's gonna happen here is I'm gonna have to just play off screen, because this is gonna take like an hour. Yeah. So we've got a game on Steam here called 4K Bricks Breaker Plus. I don't see how you can argue that even if this does run in the resolution of 4K, this does not look visually appealing for that, unless it's supposed to be that it's 4,000 bricks that are getting broken. Regardless, it's $4.24 and it's English for full audio. This, of course, is a low effort game. low quality game to say the least.
Shall we make a storm?
Interesting. Alright, so we should be good now. TechRaptor has an article. SteamWorld Quest receives free content update, adds a new Game Plus mode, and more. SteamWorld Quest is the latest in the SteamWorld series of different genres of games from the same developer. I think it's on my wish list, so getting a free content update and a new Game Plus mode probably does add to its value. That being said, I'm not really going to be chomping at the bit to play more of that or play it any faster just because of this bit of information. But there certainly have been instances of SteamWorld Quest, I think, is a card-based RPG, deck builder style game, and things like Slay the Spire and such. 10 damage. Interesting. Alright, well, we'll do that. And then we'll hit with this and this. And then we'll do this. And do that.
Thunderstruck!
And then end the turn. I guess I could have done 4 damage. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. The Coma 2 Vicious Sisters has been confirmed for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Trailer and details. I think I've seen the Coma one as a game on Steam. I think it's a horror Korean game from the looks of it. Yeah, it's kind of one of these walk around, almost visual novel style adventures. I guess I wouldn't have really thought that the Coma would have gotten a sequel, but apparently it's popular enough. So if I cared a little bit more, I would probably, in all honesty, I would probably look up the Coma one and just make sure it's on my follow list. Speaking of which, it became crazy obvious to me that I've been wasting my time, and I found a much more efficient way to see if something was on my follow list or wish list. It's just spend the extra effort to log into Steam on the browser, and it'll just tell you immediately. So here we have the Coma Recut, which, yeah, has Japanese and Korean. So, yeah, I assume this is the original version recut. It's mostly positive. It is on my wish list. Let's see. Coma Recut Deluxe Edition, the Coma Cutting Class. Apparently their original game was Vampir's Cult Soul. And that's the mixed reviewed game. Yeah. This was a game that was overhyped. Alright, well. So the Coma 2, I guess, will come out. it seems to me the subtitle for this article is "Venture from Your Deserted School to Survive." Seems like it is a horror survival game set inside of a school, so you're having at least some implied violence against children, which right now might be a little bit of a trouble, but I mean, we're in this situation where a lot of people are trying to blame video games as a dodge for the domestic terrorism that's happening around the world, around the United States. Let's face it, it's the United States only. Walmart has told its staff, according to Gamma Sutra and many other reporters, to pull violent game ads and demos, but the guns are still for sale, so the guns and ammo, so you know, Walmart's. The last time I was in a Walmart electronics department, I didn't see really any displays for any games, frankly. There are play kiosks that frankly should have been gotten rid of a long time ago. Although, in the bigger way Walmart's going to work, if there are bad parents that need to shop at Walmart and they need something to babysit their kids, if those video game kiosks are not there for them to play, then those kids are going to run around and amuse themselves by doing something more annoying. As a former annoying kid myself, I can guarantee you that. So the video game kiosks weren't too obnoxious in the first place, and all they really need to do is have no like M for mature games in them anyways. You know, unless they were gonna just turn the games on their sides and not have the logos of the first person shooters, Call of Duty style games. That's about the only other thing they can do. They also said no hunting videos on the TV displays, which I've never seen any kind of hunting videos on TV displays in the electronics, so there must be some areas to do that. But unlike, say, a Toys R Us, where there was, you know, stand-up displays and banners and advertisements all over the place for everything, Walmart's not really like that. So the seems disconnected from what Walmart was. It's been decades, frankly, since I've seen a stand-up display or any kind of display that promoted any game, let alone a violent game, a gun game. Walmart, frankly, can't seed its sales for guns and ammo, or they'd probably suffer terribly financially. They frankly can't seed their sales for video games, secede their sales for video games in fear that that Amazon.com would grab all of the sales there. So this is probably just a generic statement that's being made, a lot more of it. I wouldn't be surprised if lots of people put out this statement and it was just a PR response. It's kind of part of the issue of this mentality that if you just hire a PR company and just do what a PR company says, you'll be fine. That's not really the right move these days. Things don't blow over for people who don't want things to blow over on Twitter, and making a PR move isn't going to help anything. This inherently is going to only feed in, Walmart doing this is going to inherently only feed into potential arguments that will be made, facetious arguments, that Walmart knowingly encourages violence and knowingly tries to sell adult games to kids, which I don't know if they do or not, frankly. It probably isn't a terrible thought if there was an adult section for video games and there was a kid section for video games. And there was the kid-friendly games, and then the adult section was on the other side of the electronic section, perhaps gated out, behind the red curtain style. But I doubt that they would ever do something like that. I think when you really start to break it down, you're not going to have a lot of differences anyways, because you're not going to have too many kids games available for purchase anyways. I think it's very fair to also point out that none of the major retailers, including Walmart, have ever allowed the sales of adult-only rated games. So there's never been a case where anything that was so violent that it determined that it should be an adults-only game was sold in Walmart, with perhaps the exception of a GTA game like GTA 3. I think got re-rated as adults only, and that's it that I know of. So I don't even remember how this conversation started, but it all just kind of boils down to, yeah, there's a lot of ridiculousness and hysteria happening. But there's really nothing to say about it, too. We're in this position where people who have half a clue, the vast majority of people who are under the age of 40 know what video games are. They have kids or grandkids that play video games, and they're not accepting this ridiculous thought that all games are violent and that all games or that video games cause violence, or that violent video games even cause violence. It's just not really going to make any play to anybody who's reasonable. And so that only leaves people who don't care and just want that narrative to be true, and people who are, I don't know how else to say this, but trying to push a narrative for ridiculous reasons. That. And then we need to take out, let's see, let's just start with this guy. That.
Job's done.
The turn. So as gamers, we're gonna do the thing that we should do, is which just ignore this and wait until the next big news cycle decides to happen and they start talking about something different. Until it gets down to a more intelligent argument about the ESRB should be more active, should implement new rules or do something to improve the rating system. There's really nothing the video game community can do. Moving on, we have Gamatsu's has an article. Indie Mega Booth announces its PAX West 2019 lineup. Nearly 70 games from 14 countries. Let's just, I guess, scroll through this. I bet most of these games you haven't heard of. Cat Lady I have heard of, but it's not the Cat Lady horror game. Most of these I don't recognize as far as names of games. Yeah. These are definitely indie games. Emily is Away 3, that's a recognizable name because there's been 2 previous ones. And so, what does the trailer look like? 52 seconds? Well, it just scrolls the text of the names, that's it. That's not helpful information. Well, I mean, it is helpful information, it's just, that's not adding anything to what I've already seen. So yeah, PAX West will have a bunch of games in it. There will be indie games at the Indie Mega Booth. One assumes, having 70 mini games, indie games, this will be a case of there being one laptop or one computer running the one game, and that's it. So, of the 70 indie games, I wouldn't be surprised if at least 5 of them crash and are down for the vast majority of the time. I was listening to a podcast and they were discussing how it's kind of impossible to get a $500 laptop these days and that runs Windows well. And it is kind of an interesting concept and thought to think about, that if you are spending $500 for a laptop, you're probably a student. And if you are a student, you probably, in those actions, in being a student, are going to want to multitask a lot, watch YouTube, watch Twitch, listen to music, run the Microsoft Office, and a $500 laptop is not enough to run Windows 10 smoothly. So what gets recommended to people is a much more efficient product, which is the Chromebook, but then the Chromebook can really only run Chrome. So then you're doing Google Docs for typing, you're playing Google Music probably for music, you can be watching Twitch and YouTube, but I'm not sure if you can have multiple windows of those open at the same time. And if there is any bit of software that your school wants you to install or run, or any kind of strange like security network procedures to log on to your school's network, Chromebook may not work. And personally, I've heard of examples of people going to websites. One example of a person going to a website, let me be honest here, and it's just not configured to run at all on a Chromebook, which seems insane, frankly, because that means that website probably didn't run on Chrome or Chromium on anything. So I can't really recommend people buy Chromebooks, and I can't recommend people buy $500 laptops. The truth is, if somebody has $500 in their pocket, the right answer is to turn them around and say, come back when you have another $500. Because I could sell you garbage now, but you're going to hate the experience. And that's true regardless of how much you use it. If it is a sluggish, slow device, it's going to be sluggish and slow for its entire life. Moving back to video game news, we have a game on Steam here called Leowald, which looks like a platformer. It's a little rough visually, I would say, but I'm willing to be generous enough to put it on the follow list. Here you have a player running to the left. A science group is doing a study. They're working on it. They're halfway through, I think, where how people feel when something moves from left to right. Because when reading, left to right has more of a forward in time positive connotation to it, versus what they did is they showed a video where somebody is walking left to right, and then they flipped a video where the exact same video but he's walking right to left, and then had people write down key phrases to see how they felt about those videos. And inherently, when they flipped the video and people were walking from right to left, it was more negative. I don't know by how much, though. That's why they're still working on it. This is a $13.49 English and German language game. I'm going to put it on the follow list. But, yeah. If you're making a video game, it's not just because you need to follow or copy what Super Mario Brothers 1 does. You should make your character run left to right. I've also heard that if you have a split path, the left should always be moving the story forward, and right should always be a side mission that doesn't move the story forward. Which definitely falls into that too. And if people so stringently follow these rules, you would think that all video games would get very procedural and boring, but honestly, it doesn't seem like that really happens. I think people are more than happy to have that slight bit of unconscious familiarity. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has a blog, Discoverability, a hot or not genre guide. This is, of course, a blog talking about how to be discoverable on Steam, which is a big deal. Let's see, not local multiplayer-centric games, I can understand that. Not multiplayer-centric games, I can understand that. Not shorter games, I like shorter games. Not side-scrolling platformers. Alright, there's a lot of those that come out. What is hot, according to this article? Games with procedurally generated or roguelike elements. Yeah, they are kind of hot. Games with in-depth simulation or strategy elements. Depending on the game, I can agree with that. Games that have an inherent audience from an underserved market. Which, I guess, maybe there's something to that. Like if you're making in this example it says a City Skylines game, which using City Skylines is a pretty old reference, but City Skylines definitely inherited the SimCity fan base of people, and that got it more promotion and more purchases than it probably would have otherwise. Let's see if there's anything else. Hot games that are different and visually attractive. I can definitely say that, like, more than anything else. As somebody who looks at every game that comes out on Steam. We've played like 25 to 50 Murlocs now. It is definitely... If something looks different, it's got my attention. Even if it's like a terrible troll game, it's got my attention enough to then get my disdain. And visually attractive definitely sells. There have been many games on Steam that don't play that well, but they catch my eye because they're visually attractive. And for me in particular, that usually means that it is either extremely well polished 3D model and graphics that looks like a AAA game, or it's a anime 2D style game, which would be the example of a 2D extremely well polished graphics. Because honestly, I don't think I could make an argument that any other kinds of 2D animation is anywhere as polished as the anime style is. Not any kind of style I could point to and say, oh yeah, this is going in a different direction, but it still looks very, very well polished. Double Fine retweeted this article. Double Fine's Rad is a game about disrespecting your elders to save the planet. Poor timing to put out an article like this, certainly, and since this is Double Fine retweeting this, I think this is probably just paid advertisement. I think Rad, you play as a character that can mutate. I don't think Rad is actually a game, though, that's going to succeed. If I was just a guess. I'm thinking what we'll run into is a case of it coming out and then being very quickly forgotten about. Next we have a game on Steam called Police Stunt Cars. It's a low effort name, it's a low effort asset flip game. We really don't even need to watch the trailer to see that. Why not instead play Rocket League and get a police skin? This is 99 cents apparently. We don't see a lot of 99 cents games, English only. This my new turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Nice Jumper, which this is just one of those Doodle Jump clones ported to PC for no real reason. This is free to play, but if you want the premium, it's $1.79 English only. There's nothing that a game like this could have that would make it actually worth playing. It's just not complicated enough. A game. Let's see this. And this. And then the turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Electronic Super Joy, which is another jumper platformer, although it looks like it's a little bit more of a Super Meat Boy style frustration game. Although it seems also to be a little bit like Fez. Frankly, the game seems to be all over the place. So it visually doesn't seem to have a consistent language or style. So I'm left in a weird experience here where I don't like it because I kind of can't figure out what it is. I also don't like it because of the bold pinks and light blues in the backgrounds. It's the gold edition is $12.99. It's free otherwise. It's English only, but it requires a third-party account. It seems like we might be seeing the beginnings of a system here where they are going to intentionally release the game for free and then lock the vast majority of the games behind DLC, which is not something we've seen a lot of from on Steam lately so far, or I haven't ever seen a lot of that. So that might be the new scam that people have devised. Perhaps Steam changed the rules and that's why they're doing this. Next we have Labyrinths of the World Fool's Gold Collector's Edition. This is a Big Fish Games hidden object game. It's $12.59 English with full audio. If you like hidden object games, you probably would still do better just getting them directly from Big Fish Games themselves. But if you wanted them on Steam, these games, there's so many, and they never go down in price, which is one complaint. Let's see. I guess I should just roam here as much as possible. But more and more as I see hidden object games, I don't want to really deal with them or play them. At this point, like, I don't want to break up an episode even though I should, and I don't want to really play any more Murlocs. So let's break up an episode even though I don't want to, and let's have at least 2 recordings. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.
Oh, come in. Our little tavern is like an oasis in the desert.
Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, August 9th. We're on the European account. We didn't actually finish all of the Americans account. We needed to play 50 Murlocs, and ironically, we've got 50 Murlocs we need to play here too. So, if I just play 30 Paladin class cards, maybe I'll play 5 Murlocs in that. And that's, I think, all I need to do. Or do I need to play this too? Yes, I need to play this Tavern Brawl. So, we'll come over to the Paladin, and we'll copy this. And looking at the Paladin deck that we're playing, it's a mech deck, so odds of us having any Murlocs are low, but whatever. We need to play our 3 games and get our pack and be done with it. I'm moving kind of slow today, which, like every stream, I'm always wanting to speed this up and get things done quicker than it ever actually takes. But yeah, I want to cover the news, and I've got a lot of work that if I can get around to actually doing it. Oddly, like working on my server, the number one thing that increased my productivity in working in there was simply turning the fan in the room to maximum. It was spinning at like a lower speed, and I just, pulled the chain and cycled through it until it was at the maximum speed, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a lot cooler in this room now, and comfortable, and now I'm not just miserable for no reason as I'm trying to type in all these Linux commands and make some sense out of how to install and set up things. Alright. Do I want to do this? Or do I want to wait?
Reporting for duty.
Let's go ahead and start burning through the news. TechRaptor has an article. Coverage Club, Clawstaff misses the mark. Clawstaff seems to be a really ugly looking game. Why they'd even bother to cover it, I don't know. One thing I will give credit to mainstream video game journalists is that they do seem to have some filtration in their minds where they won't just play terrible looking retro games. They were TechRaptor was clearly given a free code for this game, but there's no reason to need or use that free code.
The battle.
Let's see. If the game looks like what that game looked like you might as well have just said that's not worth any of our writers' time. On the other hand, it is nice when they occasionally try something different. But even as somebody who has tried a lot of different things on Steam and covered a lot of different games, frankly, if it looks like a NES game and it isn't an NES game and it looks bad, or if it looks like a ColecoVision game or an Atari game, the graphics are just so disconnecting to me that I would never give it the time of day.
Converting stored energy.
And in return, Gamma Sutra has an article. Discord is launching in-server streaming later this month with a new Go Live feature. This is interesting. You can stream gameplay up to 10 friends in the server while hanging out together in voice chat. That's hardly streaming to like Twitch or YouTube or Mixer even, though. So I don't really see the idea here. The only thing I guess is you get your own servers and you get to run things. So if you only have a group of 10 friends, which that's reasonable, like that you'd have only like 10 friends on your personal Mixer server and you want to just stream to them and no one else, which might be a good parenting move, quite frankly. Is like, if you want to stream your games, you're going to do it on Discord, you're going to stream it to your friends and your friends only. Now, it doesn't really stop anybody from capturing that video and streaming it to Twitch or YouTube, so it's not 100% safe or secure as far as I assume the software will work. But it at least stops the majority of that kind of element from happening. I'm gonna draw first. You always draw first. Alright. So then we can do this. And we can do this. And we can do this. And then in the turn, and all he really needs is like a silence, and that would kill my guy pretty easily. There's another story that we'll talk about in a few minutes, I'm sure, of where Twitch also has launched a app for streaming, which, okay, yeah. I will say that Twitch has managed to not cause any too much more controversy, I think, in the past 7 days. So they're maybe getting back to a position of not snowballing down into the mud as fast as possible. On the other hand, Borderlands 3, at this point there's actual calls for people to boycott Borderlands 3. That was what I thought Borderlands would manage to avoid no matter what. Honestly, I thought regardless of whatever Randy Pitchford did, regardless of what 2K did, nobody would have enough frustration to actually boycott the game. And I still kind of assume that the calls for boycotts and people saying that they're going to boycott Borderlands 3 is mostly just puffery and Twitch talk, Twitter talk. but yeah, they really stepped in it with their harassment of the leaker. And now people are upset about that, on top of people already being upset that it was an Epic Store exclusive. They definitely pushed it too far, and now I guess maybe in a weird way, if I think about it, it might not be a terrible idea if Borderlands 3 did fail. It's not great for the video game industry. It's not great for 2019 as far as games being released, AAA games being released and played. But if somehow it failed so bad that Randy Pitchford had to sell Gearbox or go into bankruptcy, if that was the outcome, and then some other company purchased the Borderlands series and put a new spin on it and put more effort into it, that would be great. It would be even better if 2K itself went bankrupt, and yeah, I guess 2K would be the one that would have to go bankrupt. Like, there's two separate things that would happen there if Borderlands 3 just failed miserably, which it really can't because it's already getting paid from Epic Store. But if it failed miserably and that caused Randy Pitchford to finally sell and get out of Gearbox, and Gearbox then as an entity was run by somebody better, that would be way better, I think, for Gearbox and the video game industry in general. If 2K failed and they had to go to bankruptcy, and their license, their ownership of the Borderlands series transferred hands to who even knows who would buy it, they would do a better job, frankly. Let's just say it's some small independent, a conglomerate of independent companies that form a new corporation and swear to do things better. There might be something to that would make sense. That being said, probably not. It does sound more like fantasy than reality of what would really happen. What would really happen if 2K went out of business because Borderlands 3 failed is either Ubisoft or EA would buy it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was EA. And then you would just get an annualized microtransaction laden versions of Borderlands. So the best I guess you can have hope is you should vote your conscience, definitely, and if you want to boycott Borderlands 3, it's a good idea. Best you can hope is this sends a message to 2K and Gearbox in a lot of different ways, saying these actions are unacceptable, and this would lead to leadership change at 2K and Borderlands, 2K and Gearbox, while not actually causing the entire companies to collapse. Like, if the person in charge of 2K changed, if Randy Pitchford left Gearbox, and that would be a better situation, I think, than anything else. Alright, is this a mech? This is a mech, so if I was to do this, it would be at 12, which should still kill it. So we have to kind of do this, attack here, and then do this. That's pretty much all I can do. Moving on, Game of Citra has an article. The Final Fantasy XIV team is reworking the base game content to be more compact. This is basically the idea of having an accelerated experience for new players, not take as long as it took the original players. They're going to make them less tedious, and a rework is being developed alongside a new Game Plus mode for a later patch. Final Fantasy XIV being the online game. I think it's been relaunched at least. It's been launched twice, then launched once, then relaunched. And so this would be effectively making a third relaunch of the game, trying to get more people into it. I think Final Fantasy XIV in particular is a great example of somebody just trying the same thing over and over again.
To battle!
Is there anything I could do to save myself? Nope. So just attack. Next we have a game on Steam called Head Over Heels, which looks like it's an isometric puzzle platformer game. You definitely don't see games like this in the modern time. There used to be a lot of games like this in the Windows 95 days, but I don't think they were particularly happy with them. You can see there's... well, these things don't even want to load, so it's like there's 2 more screenshots here I can't even load, and they're heavily focusing on logos instead of showing actual screenshots. It's $7.99 English with full audio. I don't see anything here to catch my attention. This might be an example of something that is a hidden gem, but I'm not willing to risk that. Sounds like they changed the sound effect there when you lost. Next we have a game on Steam called Speedway Challenge 2019. Oops, did not mean to bring that up full screen. This looks like it's a 2 zoomed out racetrack racing game.
I will fight with honor.
Doesn't, maybe has some RPG elements. It's $5.99, bunch of languages, German, Dutch, and Polish. Yeah, nothing visually impressive about that though, so let's trade out all these cards. Would be nice for the effect of playing this Tavern Brawl to actually get a victory, but it'd be more efficient in time just to lose 3 times in a row. Be, I guess, most efficient to maybe concede. Next we have a game on Steam called Jackson the Thief. This looks like another MS Paint level graphics game, platforming type thing. Again, if this was a Windows 95 program, this probably would sell pretty well. I can't even tell if Jackson is supposed to be a male or female there. It's drawn so poorly. Let's see if we can pause the video and then bring it back here. Jackson's arm. Jackson, I would assume, is a male name. But these look pretty feminine eyes. This looks like pretty feminine hips. But it's just terrible drawing. Jackson the Thief is $1.10. $1.19 discounted in English only. It has 26 achievements that are numbers, so I can tell this is an achievement game. I do see the beginning of the end, so if we burn through these terrible games, of which there are many, I think we'll be done relatively quickly. But we also have a lot of Hearthstone that I think I'll probably play off screen. Next we have a game on Steam called Button Up, which seems like you're trying to play cooperatively or play at the same time controlling 2 characters, which kind of means I'm out immediately anyways. Seems like it's maybe a player versus player game with a small single player puzzle experience. It's $9.59. does say it has a multiplayer, but that might just be local multiplayer. It's English, Chinese, Japanese, and traditional Chinese, so I suspect this is a Chinese game. In fairness to a lot of other Chinese games, this isn't the worst looking one. Seems like when they hit a light, they turn into a button that can be then used as a platform. Oh, I should have played this first. That was bad. Bad strategy on my part. Yeah, I don't think Button Up though is good enough to be on the fall list. It's just a slightly better version of a bad game.
Put this apple on your head.
Comparing it to something like this, Sanitarium Rush, where it seems like it's a low effort game, a puzzle game of some sort, with a ever increasing wiggle effect put over it, as if this is what insane people will always see. 59 cents discounted, 24 achievements, English full audio allegedly. Sanitarium Rush, not a game that's with it. See, I could have done this so much better. Alright.
Converting stored energy. Converting stored energy.
That's not a valid target.
Alright. I should have hit that. Oops. That would have made a lot more sense to kill this guy. Yeah, actually leaving him alive might take out more damage. Anyway, Sanitarium Rush, definitely not making it to the fall list. I'm in this weird position because, like, I started this stream just rambling about, like, working on a Linux server and low-level Linux programming that nobody cares about, I'm sure, and ranting about how I'm not really playing games right now and making footage, and haven't been for 2 or 3 weeks at this point. So I'm rambling and ranting just about general things, or now we're covering video game news, but it's mostly just Steam garbage, because there's not really any other video game news worth mentioning. The one thing being discussed is a just not worth talking about ridiculous conversation. So I'm left with nothing to say of import in many different ways. I suppose at a certain point I could just say forget looking at games on Steam. And let's just play Hearthstone, but I definitely don't care about Hearthstone enough. And see, we're just a couple days into the new expansion, and it's like, alright, I'm seeing some new cards, that's about it. I'm not seeing a major change in the strategy in Hearthstone. So I'm kind of just meandering and wandering around. Since there's not a lot to do. Moving on, we have a terrible game on Steam called The Gun Knight, which you can tell by the graphics looks horrible. Looks like it might be a top-down twin-stick shooter. It's early access, it's free, it's English only. Yeah, right. Do we want to play something like this? I wonder. Kinda have no choice.
Last warning.
I should have attacked that with that. That was a mistake.
Get in there and fight, maggot.
Here's some real news from Gamasutra. Activision Blizzard's Q2 net revenues falls year over year to $1.4 billion. What was it before? Yeah, it was 1.641 billion, and now it's 1.396 billion. So that's $2.5 billion in this quarter lost from just not having a good Call of Duty sales or a good experience with Overwatch as far as microtransactions of World of Warcraft or Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm or any other many Activision Blizzard properties. Let's see, this breaks this down.
Uther versus Thrall.
For Doomhammer, I will fight with honor.
Yeah, I'm scrolling down the article to see if they actually blame it. Blame what? Hearthstone's MAUs, I wonder what MAUs are up quarter-over-quarter. World of Warcraft subscribers have increased since May. Yeah, there's nothing in this article that really explains why Activision's Blizzard is losing money, but they totally should be explaining that, because it's pretty obvious to anybody who knows Activision Blizzard and has been following the news, is that they're hemorrhaging talent and their games aren't selling well, and they don't have any new great game to pull them out of this slump. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article, the Australian Ratings Board working to completely ban DayZ for promoting cannabis. So apparently Australia is very not happy with DayZ and cannabis in general. I don't know if DayZ is really in any position where it matters too much, though. But it would matter, certainly, to be banned in Australia. That's a big country. Australia is more conservative than you would think, it seems, all the time. Gamma Sutra has another article. Twitch launches a beta for an all-in-one streaming app, Twitch Studio. I believe Twitch bought Streamlabs at some point, but I could be wrong about that. Let's see. Twitch Studio looks to eliminate the needs for programs like OBS or XSplit that handle the more technical side of the stream on platforms like Switch, and offers a handy handful of Twitch integrations on top of that. That being said, Twitch notes that it sees Twitch Studio as a more accessible way for streamers to get set up, rather than something to lure experienced streamers away from programs they already use.
Let me think.
I don't see why you wouldn't want to use Streamlabs software instead, or OBS or XSplit instead. Quite frankly, if you can't figure out how to set up OBS or XSplit, you're not smart enough to be running a Twitch stream or a YouTube stream in the first place. And there's a level of protection in ignorance that you probably should consider not losing.
Access denied.
Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. There's a report that the parent company of the publisher Annapurna Interactive is exploring bankruptcy. Annapurna Pictures is a movie production house and parent company of the Florence, Gorogoa, and Donut County publisher Annapurna interactive. So this is very possibly the first story we will see, but probably not the last story we will see, where you're in a situation that let's see, how are we gonna do this? We need to do 8 damage.
Converting stored energy.
Alright. So 4, 4, turn. Yeah, this might be the first story of Hollywood who has been trying in small parts, in little bursts, to become more involved with video game development and publishing and such, instead of just being licensors. This may be the beginning of seeing why that really doesn't work, because let's face it, the people in charge of Hollywood movie production companies are all idiots that think they aren't idiots and think they're geniuses. They make random stupid decisions all the time, and it's surprising that anything good or artistic ever comes out of Hollywood ever, and very little does. Usually it is extremely focus tested to death and extremely generic. Excuse me. It's a bigger story, certainly, about not being careful and deciding who is going to be invested and involved in your development of your business. Having an investor like a movie company comes with the risk of that investor pulling out. That's in part what happened to Telltale Games also. So I would say Telltale Games is the beginning of TV in Hollywood becoming investors in video games and then pulling out quickly and stop funding the development of the games. Whereas at least video game publishing companies know the industry and know how long it takes and how much money it takes to develop a good game. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called The 100 Years War. This looks like a hex-based style of real-time strategy game. Visually, it's not very attractive. Not sure I'd ever really want to play a real-time strategy or just strategy game in general like this. $8.99 discounted, English only. Yeah, I just don't think there's enough visual polish on the what you're actually looking at, the tiles, the menus, the characters. This and this and this
The battle
and that.
for
Oh, and then I can win. Alright, we're slowly playing Paladin cards. We need to play 17 more, and getting some more victories on the Tavern Brawl wouldn't be terrible. Gamatsu has an article here. Oninaki Daemon Trios gameplay. I
Uther versus
just
Jaina.
barely remember the name of the game,
I
Oninaki.
will fight with honor.
There we go. Play. Skip. What does this say? Top-down beat 'em up thing? Diablo hack and slash type game. Yeah, the gameplay definitely does not seem like it falls into the same style as the video at the very beginning here, where you're seeing this character. It's like this totally does not seem to match. So yeah, I'm still not gonna leave this page having a great thing in my mind as far as what Oninaki is. I know Oni is demon in Japanese, Naki, who knows what that means though. I don't. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Taikai no Tasunjin Pop Tap Beat has been trademarked in Europe. This is the drumming game that's extremely popular. At least in Japan and amongst drummers around the world. I would probably not go much further than that in describing it as popular in general. I saw what the Donkey Kong congas actually looked like when you took them apart, and it was mostly air. It's like two little switches connecting via long wires to a board that connected to the plug, and that was it. A very small circuit board. I believe there was a microphone on the circuit board that listened for loud sounds because you'd clap your hands. Still waiting, I guess. Gamatsu has an article here. ESP Raw Day PSI, or ESP Raw Day Sai debut trailer. This looks like a new shoot 'em up game with the name ESP. I assume that means it's telekinetic people, espers. There is, I guess, something slightly nice to a modern interface for these shoot 'em up games, where you're seeing something that this may just be all art style stuff on the sides. Here, yeah, you can see they're all telekinetic psychic people. This looks like a weird art style. I don't know if this is Chinese or what. But yeah, I want to go back here and just say, yeah, if all shoot 'em up games had a map from the beginning to the end of the level and just more things that they could do at the left and right of the menu, that would be nice. I don't know if, again, I don't know if those things that are being shown though are actual things that matter, or if this is really more of a case of, right, go ahead and plug that. Next story we have is Umehara Kawase Fresh is coming to the PS4. It will exhibit at the Tokyo Game Show 2019. This is late because this has already been released, I believe, for the Switch and the PC. Yeah, it first launched for the Switch in April. I guess it hasn't come out for the PC yet. Well, I guess then it will come out for the PC, would be my suspicion at least, later on, since all the other Umehara series of games have come out. Since I own Getting Over It with Bene Foddy, I wouldn't be upset, frankly, with the idea of
stored energy. Converting stored energy.
Of playing that game and then playing
Access denied.
oops, I shouldn't have played that there.
I must move quickly.
And then playing the Umehara series and comparing them, because I think Getting Over It with Bene Foddy is definitely comparable in gameplay style to the Umehara series. Use all enemy minions.
You'll never win. You'll never win.
Alright. Start by changing that. And then doing that.
Reporting
And I think that's pretty much all I can do. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Project Sakura Wars, new combat review reveal and TGS information. Live stream set for August 21st. So we're getting more trickles of information for the Project Sakura Wars next Sakura Wars games. Gamatsu has an article, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has shipped over 3.8 million, which... that's a lot. That is way more than I would have thought that they actually got. Actually, like, it seems like they jumped from 300,000 to over 1 million. Like I don't recall there being announcements that it would even hit those kind of benchmarks. I did not think the game was that popular. Or that, honestly, I thought it was going to be a little bit popular, but people were still not going to buy it. It was the way I was looking at it. Alright.
For justice. To battle.
Alright, then we'll kill this. And then we'll end the turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Tower VR. This is a tower defense game in VR. Arguably, this is the best looking tower defense game I've seen in VR so far, but it is still just a tower defense game with the added burden of being played in VR, and thus being played with a system that can run VR and a system that owns a potentially $600 VR headset. So if you do have VR, Tower VR is free and the price is right, and it's English with full audio. Can't really say much other than that. I'm really at the point where I seriously doubt I'd get VR in this generation. So if I was to put this on the follow list, it's kind of for my own personal reason. I guess I'll do it. I'll be generous. I'll put this on the follow list in case, I guess, just in case I somehow win a free VR headset. But even at that, it's fair to say I would only really play the game for a few minutes.
For justice.
Job's done.
Let's see, Gamer Sutra has a video, tips on interviewing for game design jobs. Seems like the video doesn't want to really load up here. And the page seems like it's crashing. This is a GDC session and the video is not loading. Nope, it just crashed. Haven't seen a smiley frowny face like that in a long time either. That might be interesting, but I doubt it's going to be super helpful for too many people. Inherently, the tip is be friends with the job interviewer, and and I don't mean be friendly with them during the job interview. I mean have already met and known that person, and thus cronyism kicks in. That's the way to get a job. How do I have a duplicate card? I'm not even gonna bother to figure. Well, I guess that was the card I just got, wasn't it? Disenchant that for 5 dust. Alright, so I need to play 5 Murlocs and some Paladins. I can do that now that I'm out of the Tavern Brawl pretty easily. We'll play 1 Murloc game, and that's it. And then we'll kind of rush and finish through the news. And then this whole weekend, I'm gonna probably not do anything and take just work on my server. We have a game here on Steam, At Home Alone 2. This looks like a Chinese RPG Maker style game. It's really, really zoomed out, so that visually that looks terrible. It's $1.99 and English and Chinese, yeah, with 10 achievements. Yep, that's not gonna sell. It's not gonna work for me. Just gonna re-roll everything that's not a Murloc in hopes of getting Murlocs. I don't know if this story is an update from what we talked about on Wednesday, but Gamasutra has an article, devs are now required to contact Valve for the release date changes. Yes, here we go. Update. Valve has confirmed that moving a release date for an unreleased game on Steam now requires developers to contact the company to make any changes, replacing the previous system that allowed devs to alter the listed date at will. The release date on a game's Steam page are always largely used to list games in the storefront's upcoming release category. Blah blah blah. Valve notes developers are still available to release their games ahead of, on, or after the listed date as long as the build has already passed Steam's approval policy. Along with this policy change, Valve notes that it will now send out reminders via email to developers 2 weeks ahead of the game's release to ensure that everything is still on track for that listed date, which that's a nice thing for them to do. It certainly is give them a reminder to, hey, you said you were going to release this game. Are you actually going to release this game? That's doing their due diligence to have a better storefront environment. It's applaudable for Valve. Valve, in a lot of ways, is getting applauded for doing something they should have done a long time ago. Just play that. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Square Enix is shutting down Star Ocean Anomalous in the West after a little over a year. So it was a free-to-play RPG, but it's not getting any English support. Yeah, that probably would suck. I'd hate if Destiny Child, the game I'm playing on my phone and still mostly obsessed about, although it is kind of just settling into its motions. If the global version of that game shut down and I lost my account, I'd be rather upset. And I don't think I would jump over to the original Korean version or the Japanese version. That would be annoying, to say the least. Alright, well, this is a Murloc, so we need to play that. Or it's treated as a Murloc. This needs to go. That needs to go. And that needs to go. Gamasutra has an article here. Animoca Brands acquires the digital collectibles marketplace Quid for $5 million. I've never heard of Animoca Brands, and I've never heard of Quid. Let's see. Apparently, Quid is only worth $5 million. Quid owns and runs an online marketplace where users can buy and sell digital collectibles like stickers, gifts, cards, and 3D digital toys. It claims to be the world's largest assortment of digital collectibles and has established partnerships with big names like Disney, Marvel, HBO, and NBA. Yeah. Never heard of it. And see if we could see their website.
I wonder.
And see what it's really about. So, while we're playing this too, that would be an intelligent thing to do.
Shall we make a storm?
There is little time.
I played that wrong. Alright, so here's Quid. First thing they show me is a pop-up, and then they tell me to install a mobile app, and it seems like it is just digital items, then a bunch of stickers and buttons. So they're like doing card pack openings for digital things. Yeah, that sounds like that's a garbage service that nobody should ever get into. That's a waste of time and money. Let's see. Deal 4 damage.
Thunderstruck!
Elements guide.
Take the victory, might as well. Even though I don't think I'm even playing ranked. There's the Murlocs played, and now we just need to play the Paladin. And we'll play ranked on Paladin. Next we have a game on Steam called Titan Outpost. It looks like a Dark Screenshot Syndrome asset flip space game of some sort. Actually, it seems like it's more of crawling around.
Uther versus Uther.
Outposts.
I
think this is the actual
I will
gameplay
command
mechanic,
the
and
light.
these are more just cutscenes and mission givers. This might just be a transition area. It really is all over the place with different art styles, different perspectives, different things being shown. This is another case of I really don't know what this game is, and I'm not happy with it because it's tried to advertise itself to me and it's failed. They want $24.99 with no discount whatsoever. Says it has full English audio. Of course not. Of course this is not making it to the fall list. It fails to impress. Okay, so we've got this and this. So first turn we could just draw a bunch of cards. Just do this. We get one of those. And then do this. And we get hopefully another one of those. Then we end the turn. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Terminal Squad Sentinel, which seems to be just a match 3 game with a mech battle theme being animated over on the side, which doesn't drastically change the match 3 gameplay. And visually, I don't think a mech from a top-down perspective fighting monsters or other mechs is that appealing. This is early access, $4.24 English and Russian. I wouldn't call this a Russian troll game as much as it's just a Russian low effort game. I wonder when it comes to the troll games if the strategy actually is more than what it seems. Like, maybe there is a strategy to put out some games that are just low effort games and some games that are actual troll games or extremely trollish or games, or maybe it's just an artistic decision on some people's part. To determine how trollish they want to actually be. I could rush this guy, and since I can rush the guy, I can just do this. Next, we have a game on Steam called Air Car, and I bet this is kind of a simplistic game, but it is very visually polished. So, if this is really just a simulation of flying in a flying car, and that's all it's selling itself for, it really is just gonna, for me, come down to, is this interactive, or is this just a on-rails video? It requires VR. It's free, so the price is right. It's English with full audio. I think this deserves to be on the fall list. If I ever do get VR, I think this would be an experience worth looking at or trying for at least a moment or so.
Let's go!
Let's see. Gamatsu has the Alliance Alive HD remastered Japanese trailer. I believe this seems to be a Switch game. I think this is one of those RPGs where the graphics look decent in the cutscenes, but there are the small chibi, low polygon characters in actual gameplay. Let's see. They're at least trying to draw characters that match the low polygon versions of the characters, but I don't think that visually appeals to me by much. Let's see. This is coming to PC, PS4, and Switch. I don't know how this remaster is going to be well received for people who haven't played the game before, but I suspect it is a somewhat popular RPG for them to go through the effort to remaster it and re-release it. We've kind of seen a die down in the fake remasters, people saying a game is remastered when it really isn't, or claiming it's been improved but barely doing anything to it. Afford to do this right now.
Job done.
There we go. Next, we have a game on Steam called Tower Alchemist. Again, it looks like an NES style game. It's not visually impressive, although they are trying to put some flame effects on top of the screen. Something certainly you couldn't do with an NES game. But otherwise, it's just horribly drawn.
I wonder.
99 cents, no discount, English and Chinese. Yep, another example of something I think I would call a low-effort Chinese game. But we're not running into too many of them today. It seems like we will just settle into having a certain number of those kinds of games. Regardless, same is true for low effort Russian games.
For justice.
Is there something we can do? We could kill that. That's probably not a bad idea. Next, we have a game on Steam called Indian Legends Solitaire, and then they show somebody who kind of looks more like he's Aladdin from Agrabah than Indian from India. I guess there's a closeness there, and then they show some other characters that looks a lot like Jasmine from the Aladdin series too. I didn't see a monkey, I don't think. Regardless, this is just a solitaire game. It's free to play. It does have in-app purchases though, so I really wouldn't recommend playing a solitaire game with in-app purchases. That seems crazy. And this does not seem like it was a large amount of effort to integrate a character and a storyline into gameplay. They just made a cheap, low effort mobile game basically being ported to PC. So yeah, in my mind, Arabian and Indian are different. Of course, there's a time difference there, and there's a mythos difference there. We're done with the European account, so let's now jump over to the Asian account. Yeah. So, I don't think there's a country called Arabia, but there's Saudi Arabia. So, there's something to that.
But there's always room for another.
Alright, now on the Europe Asia account, we have one to reroll, and so we need to play Rogue and Warrior and cards in general. So that shouldn't be too hard, but this is also going to be a case of might as well just play ranked. I'm going to finish the news relatively soon here, and then that's going to be the end of the stream, and then I'm going to have to do just probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 3 hours of extra work of just playing Hearthstone. And it's not even getting victories. I'm going to have to actually play Hearthstone, which means by playing cards, which that really sucks. So I'm just going to trade out everything that's not a warrior card. Next we have a game on Steam called Tactics 5, is Obsidian Brigade. It doesn't look like it's much more than just a, at best, mediocrely animated tactics strategy game. Not sure I'd really want to play something like that anyways. It's not my style of game, and it doesn't visually grab me. $19.99 discounted is really expensive. 31 achievements. Let's see. And we'll take that. And then in the turn. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Hatsune Miku VR is coming to PlayStation VR. We may have talked about this already. Let's see, there's a Steam page we can look at that's for VR. So it's Hatsune Miku singing and dancing, and you're matching with the wands the actions, kind of like what is that? Saber? Blade Saber? That VR game that was super popular for a long time. I've now forgotten the name though. Yep, Hatsune Miku, $25 on Steam. Full audio Japanese translation, subtitles for everything else. Requires VR. That's the main problem. Job done. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where VR goes when the new consoles come out. Like, are we going to see a lot of instances where one would assume the PlayStation 5, the next PlayStation, which would be the PlayStation 5, yeah, and the next Microsoft, neither one, the next Xbox, Project Scarlet, I don't think either one of them are going to have any real support for VR at all. I cannot imagine that on day one they will have any support at all for VR. So all the VR games on Steam that maybe had in the back of their mind a thought that they were going to potentially port and get more sales on the PlayStation VR, I think are gonna be very sad to find that that's not the case. Save ourselves some time here. Next we have a game on Steam here called Angry Girl, which somebody spent a little bit of time on this logo and a little bit of time on this animation. I actually have to point out that, yeah, somebody bothered to animate a health bar, whereas most people that make low effort games just put a bar, just a low effort bar in there. That being said, this is just like a platform shooter game. It's super simplistic. It doesn't look entertaining. Doesn't look good. It's 59 cents discounted to English only. I guess the price is right for it though. 4 achievements, which might make it an achievement game, but I really wouldn't say that. Let's see. Let's see. Is this next game tagged sexual content? No good. Alright, so next game we have on Steam is called Lunar Timepiece Shadow of the 12. Now, if this is a Chinese game, I'm going to be super excited and happy by that, because this looks really polished. But I am fairly certain it is a mystery, slightly macabre horror mystery visual novel from Japan. When there's 12 characters, that's a commitment to writing 12 interacting stories, potentially. And that's something I don't think we can expect. Now, this screenshot looks like you might walk around and do some other kinds of gameplay, like some searching and adventuring. Let's see. Let's watch this video. Yeah, it seems like you search areas and you can zoom into certain sections. Unfortunately, the English is not supported. This is $8.09 discounted, and it is Chinese. Interesting. Wow. I applaud the quality I see here. This looks very good. This does not seem like they skimped too much on any of the art. Like, you don't draw 12 characters. Even if every single one of these characters are like stolen characters, I don't really recognize any of them as looking like they were stolen from something else. There's kind of an inconsistency here where you have like adult man and then child, but I think that's intentional, that she's supposed to be a child and look like a child. This artwork in the zoomed out adventure area is a little bit of low effort. This but definitely could be zoomed in more and visually polished more. The text all over the screen like this is not how I would want things done. But overall, this looks way better. Apparently this is a gameplay mechanic where the text flies and you have to click on lines of text. It's kind of a shame it's not translated to English though. And I guess that's what we're going to inherently need to see is even if there are good games in Chinese on Steam, they have to have some English support, or the West, people who speak only English, are never going to get that message. Moving on with the news, we have Gamatsu has an article. The new Guilty Gear is a complete reconstruction of the franchise, says the series general director. Okay, like definitely trying to get you hyped for the new Guilty Gear that was just announced a couple days ago. Gamatsu has the Azure Lane Crosswave Long Battle gameplay. They've definitely been consistently hyping Azure Lane. it makes it feel like Azur Lane is going to be the next big thing, and I kind of don't believe, at least in the West, it will be. But it might gain an audience. I just don't think it will be more than a niche audience. Gamatsu has an article. The Atelier Ryza latest trailer is out. 2 minutes of new footage. A new Atelier game trailer here. Which, again, do I really need to be hyped more on the Atelier series? I don't think so. It's an RPG series that definitely is in consideration for being in the top 10 list of JRPG games in particular that I would want to cover. Gamatsu has an article. Animated visual novel If My Heart Had Wings is coming to the Switch this summer in Japan. So another visual novel coming to the Switch. Replacing what the Vita was mostly used for. So these both have Reborn. I don't know if there's a great reason to try and take them out. Hit this guy first, I guess. And then do that. Job done. Next, we have a game on Steam that's clearly a troll game called Murder Wave Digital Slaughterer, with clown people that might be naked, I can't even tell. There's nothing here, clearly. This is early access, $2.99 discounted, 8 achievements, English only. This is not a game that people should buy. Burn through these last few games. Next, we have a game on Steam called Philandra's Dream 36,000 Feet Deep. This has an attractive, bright, colorful anime thumbnail to it, but this looks to me like it's a very low effort game. Like, the actual gameplay looks terrible. So is this some kind of cheap Chinese product, or is this just a low effort Japanese product? That's what I would guess it is. It's $9.99, English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. I would say because the Chinese is really above the Japanese that this is probably a cheap Chinese product. But I could certainly be wrong, I'm just making a guess.
Face me, you tempting tyrant!
Protocol 7 engaged.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Penguins of the North, which seems to be a penguin battling simulator game. It doesn't look particularly interesting. Maybe it's the penguins mirror your actions, so you're trying to get to the key and avoid getting hit. But yeah, I'm definitely not seeing anything here that's complicated enough to justify the $4.99 they want. Frankly, if enemies mirroring your actions needs to be something in a much larger puzzle game like Warcraft Go was, there was definitely a point where characters mirrored your actions, but yeah, but that's more than it needs more than that. It needs a lot more puzzles and concepts and gameplay mechanics than that. That's an interesting thought. If I stopped playing Hearthstone and started playing the Marvel game once it comes out, and the Marvel game doesn't have daily quests that pop up every 3 days, but instead say let you have daily quests that pile up every 5 days. Yeah, I think I'd do like a Monday stream only, and then I could curate the games that come out on Steam enough that that would be a much better experience. Yeah, getting down to a weekly experience would save me at least 6 hours a week in work. Yeah, so that's a potential hopeful thought depending on how Marvel actually plays. Getting back to video game news and looking at terrible games, we have Special Force VR, Infinity War. This clearly is just trying to create name confusion. It's already rated mixed. It's early access, requires VR. It's $14.99, which is probably the right pricing. But then it's English, German, Korean, and Russian, so it's like all over the place. And this is just like an asset flip VR game, and what you're seeing is AI components or other players moving, where it seems like as the player yourself you're barely doing anything. Let's see. Destroy a damaged minion. Probably should have destroyed that damaged minion.
Unity, precision, perfection.
And at the end of the video, like out of nowhere, you have this section that pops up where it's I'm not showing it. There you go. That's all of a sudden it says, oh yeah, we're gonna put in many more costumes, and we're gonna put in a bunch of anime lewd girl costumes in this shooter. Alright, well, this game wasn't going on the fall list anyways, but that certainly goes to show where their head is at. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. NES, Nintendo Switch Online adds Kung Fu Heroes and Vice Project Doom on August 21st. They've already gotten down to where they're only giving 2 games per month, where it was like 2.5, 3 games. And Kung Fu Heroes and Vice Project Doom, not a good selection of games, certainly. I don't get how this is a seller for them, frankly. I don't see how they think that's a smart move when they could have just said, hey, we're going to put out 100 games at the very beginning of getting Nintendo Switch Online. As long as you pay for Nintendo Switch Online, you have access to that 100 games. Frankly, for the NES kind that they could probably license, they could get 200-300 games in there. So it really doesn't make sense to slowly trickle out these things. Speaking of things that don't make sense, we have a troll game here on Steam called Genius In Girl Go Pels Chan 3. Seems like this is half anime troll and half troll versus the bad guys from World War II. $6.99 is way too expensive. English only. This is not a game worth playing.
What now?
This really feels like a game that if anybody was trying to play on any kind of stream, it's because they're trying to intentionally get banned from that streaming service, so they can whine about it later. Next, we have a game on Steam called Tia.save, which looks like an RPG Maker game. Looks like a low effort game. It's
someone injured?
$9.98, which is way too expensive. We haven't been harping on the prices too much, but almost every bad game so far we've seen on Steam is way more expensive than it should be.
Let the pain speak to me.
Next we have a game on Steam called Wonder Boy Returns Remix, which I think I really want to play the Wonder Boy series, at least the newer versions of it, the Wonder Boy and Monster Boy games. Perhaps I really would only spend like 5 minutes playing the original Wonder Boy games. This is the This seems to be a different version from what you get if you buy just Wonder Boy and Wonder Boy Returns. So I'm gonna put this on the... Well, I'm gonna do some investigation actually and probably just put this on the wish list. Yeah. And yes, this does look like an NES game, and yes, I rant all the time about how I don't want to play NES games, but this actually I think was an NES game, or actually I think it was a Sega Genesis game, and then it becomes historically relevant, and then it becomes something I'm actually interested in playing.
Face me, you meddling moron.
Of course it's the right way.
Let's see. So yeah, that I'm gonna do some investigation and then put that on the wish list. I think I can just jump to that point. Next we have a game on Steam called Don't Die, which has a little bit of visual polish here. It looks like this might be a VR game against zombies. It's a little too dark screenshot, and it seems like the person who was recording was looking down the whole time. So where it feels like he's just tilted his head throughout the whole thing. Yeah, there's not enough visual polish here to sell me on this stuff. Yeah, it just doesn't look that good. $5.99 discounted. Apparently it's relevant to me because I own Doom 2, bunch of languages. Yep, just not good enough. And this is the only game from this developer too, which frankly it feels like this is a game that would have come out from somebody who had made a couple other things before. Let's do that. Do this. Do this.
You gigantic goose.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called The Unclearness, which is a weird name for a title because that makes me feel like the audio is just going to be like corrupted throughout the entire game. But it seems like the video is going to be corrupted throughout the entirety of the game. This is one of those examples of a trailer where it's not going to show you anything other than a strip club. Hey, you're going to walk through a strip club. What's funny is it seems like more effort was put into this. You have two trailers here. It feels like somebody's really trying to sell something. This is a real professionally made thumbnail. This isn't just a low effort thing. This guy looks like a low effort, an actually animated character. I don't know if this game is good or not. It's early access. It's $19.99. It's English and Russian with full audio Russian. This might actually be a good Russian game. I'm going to put it on the follow list and give it a chance, which frankly is saying a lot. just have a couple of more games to cover. Then we'll be done for today. We have a game on Steam called Princess vs. Dragons Royal Rumble. It seems like it's a 4-player infinite runner split screen game where you're also fighting each other. Yeah, this seems like they threw a bunch of things they thought would appeal to girls and then put it on top of a player versus player bad game. Early access discounted to $17.99, which is too expensive. Local multiplayer only, English full audio allegedly. So you really can't even play the game. Let's see. Echo this and that and that. And that. Just force this guy to draw as many cards as possible. Even though that's obviously what he's trying to do. Next, Gamatsu has an article, the romance visual novel, Ibeya? Interesting. That doesn't feel Japanese. I means love in Japanese, but I've never heard of Bay or Ya. It's coming to the PS4 on November 28th in Japan. A sudden move-in with a childhood friend. Which is, you know, the standard romance contrivance for most Japanese stories is either it has to be a childhood friend or a stepsister or something, otherwise you would have no interaction with that person of your same age without bringing great shame upon yourself and others.
Quickly.
Let's see. Well, it's another visual novel. It's coming to the PS4. We'll wait to see if it gets censored, or if there's anything even in it to censor. On the turn. Got just a couple more. Libretto is making more progress in their AI service, machine translation, OCR, and text-to-speech. This is a major effort that they've been doing to make it work so that you could play a game, even if it's not in your language, around the world with some level of accuracy. Being able to press a button, take a screenshot of what you're seeing on the screen, and seeing what they have to say. Now, inherently, I don't think you're going to get this configured to work the way you want it to for like a visual novel. I don't think you're going to be able to play something that has 44,000 words in it and translate it into anything recognizable from Japanese to English in particular. But if you're playing a JRPG and it's just saying enter your name, you could do a screenshot there and realize, oh, okay, that's what it's asking me to type in, so I'll type it in. And then you probably would then still have to ignore most of the... There's a lot of flashing in this video. I don't understand why the AI service would use the VR service. It seems like they've integrated it pretty well too. It seems like it is actively blacking out the Japanese, which I would assume this is actually originally, and replacing it with a new font. But here they're playing like a JRPG. Yeah, if they've got it down to the point where it will just automatically translate everything very well, that's amazing. Now the question to ask yourself too is this going to be something that works really well on a Raspberry Pi. Probably not. You're probably in a better position to assume that it is going to only work if you're running Lib Retro on a PC. Too late to play that. I don't think I really. I'll read this article later and see if there's anything more interesting to say there. But it's an amazing push, certainly, for just trying to make games as accessible, particularly old games, as accessible as possible, more accessible than ever before.
All right.
Next, we have a game on Steam called As Divine Minisa, which looks like a JRPG, RPG Maker game. The thing that catches my attention and reminds me here is that it has now probably been about 2 weeks, and this is Friday, and we haven't seen any games on Steam, I think, in about 2 weeks that have nudity or sexual content in them. So if by next Friday we don't see that, then I guess that's back on the table. I'm a little surprised we haven't heard stories of violent troll gun games being not allowed on Steam, but I don't think Steam's gonna fall for that, as the makers of Fallout. As Divine Minisa is on the falling list already. It's $11.69. It's English and Japanese. I don't really see a reason why I would have put this on the fall list, though. It really shouldn't be. So I'm gonna have to do some research on that and figure out why. Good, just play as many cards as possible. That's all I'm trying to do. Lib Retro and RetroArch, by the way, I believe have connected their search bars. So if you're on either website, it searches both, which is just a convenience factor, certainly. Well, I guess I take it back, because this next game is tagged with sexual content and nudity. So maybe this is really more of a testament to timing or quality control. We have a game on Steam called Lost Smiles Memories and Promises. This came out, I believe, right at the end of the stream on Wednesday. It is tagged sexual content and nudity. It's a visual novel game. You can see it's anime characters. Your pick of anime characters that you can date. I won't watch the video just in case there's something there. Now the weird thing here, though, is English language is not supported, so it's $44.99 for Japanese only and full Japanese audio. So this can't go on the fall list for me. Are we going to potentially start to see a case where there are different standards based on whether a game supports the English language or not? That would be an interesting twist in the on and off drama of Steam's censorship or attempt to not be a censoring a body, even though it does seem to sometimes be a censoring body. And then the final game I have open right now is a game called GGG Collection, which is just a collection of extremely low effort garbage games. It's free to play, it's English only. I don't think I need to say anything more about that. And then that brings me to the Humble Bundle, and then I'll go back to the Twitter feed. Let's see. Any new Humble Bundles? No, not really.
I wonder.
Yeah. let's go back to the Twitter feed now and see if there's. There we have a Hat in Time was rated for the PS4 and Switch by the USRB, dated under U&I Entertainment, which is a retail game distributor. So A Hat in Time for the PS4 and Switch is probably coming out in physical forms, which that doesn't surprise me. Hat in Time, definitely the kind of game that would make sense to put in a physical form.
Precision.
Yeah, I'm back to the new Twitter latest tweets feed. I think that's pretty much where we've got to be. Seems like they kind of fixed the response issue with, or I muted the one person that was getting a lot of comments and responses. Still getting 2K to retweet a lot of WWE stuff, so they're hyping up a little bit of that too much, but not ridiculous amounts. This. And then this. And then this. So here's Gamatsu's article, Plants vs. Zombies Battle for the Neighborville, trademarked in Europe. This sounds like it's a new Plants vs. Zombies Modern Warfare, Garden Warfare style game, not Plants vs. Zombies 3. Well, actually they pictured Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. So I guess Battle for Neighborville might be the third Plants vs. Zombie games that I think they're working on, but I don't see a reason why they wouldn't just call that Plants vs. Zombies 3. And then here we have a troll game called Mega Mim 2. It's a Mega Man troll MS Paint garbage game. Discounted to $2.99, English only. Not worth anyone's time. And yeah, that's all the latest tweets I had. And so, where is this going to leave me today as we're in the stream? We have 3 more warrior cards that I need to do, and then just a bunch of rogue cards that I'm gonna have to play off screen, and then more murlocs occurring. More murlocs need to be played on the Americas account. So not only do I need to get victories that I'm gonna do playing off screen, I need to get actual play of the cards, which means a lot more frustration and a lot more time. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording and stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.